The Galactic Arena served as the highest point of a stage for intergalactic entertainment species from all throughout the galaxy were on display. Their power and skill weren't only a battlefield, it served as evidence. To each race's unwavering pride that the enormous walls of the arena were scarred by many conflicts, each signifying the victory of the powerful and the humiliation of the weak. Throughout time, one species had emerged as the all-encompassing. The premise of these competitions is for people to the humans were nothing to the alien onlookers. More than delicate, soft-bodied beings from a planet in the backwater, even though perseverance in every effort to dispatch warriors into the arena had resulted in a loss. The concept of a human challenger itself reminded their shortcomings are a source of amusement. Infinite amusement. As the audience assembled for the title game, the air was charged with expectation. The lineup was amazing. And the audience was anticipating another entertaining session at humanity's cost. Among the audience of roaring snarls and obscenities reverberated from the voices. They herald the release of another to them. The human contestant was nothing. A prelude that goes beyond a ceremonial gesture to the impending humiliation of commenters joined in on what they had to say. Brimming with contempt, ladies and gentlemen, get ready for what is about to happen. Probably the arena's shortest battle. The human challenger has come in history. The audience burst out laughing. 100% confidence in the result. The championship itself wasn't merely a spectacle. It represented power and dominance in a galaxy collaborating with victories of a variety of sophisticated species. There were more than simply warriors in the arena. They were legends, and their names were honored throughout star systems for humanity, but it was a humiliating phase of their earlier. The competitors had been destroyed with regard their attempts as futile and eased them. An inferior species tries today was anticipated to be identical to the announcer gave the fighters an introduction. The alien champion came into focus. Imposing beast of strength and danger decked out in the ceremonial armor, that kind's name reverberated across the arena. Moniker that is commonly associated with victory, the audience cheered their trust with roars. Steadfast in their champion, then the human contestant entered the ring. The crowd fell silent. Then came a chorus of derisive laughing. Armed and wearing plain armor, nothing out of the usual for the human, appeared modest, almost humorous. In contrast to the setting of the arena's green, the audience perceived no danger or difficulty in this. Was yet another futile attempt to gain respect by pursuing a lost cause. Across the arena, the announcer's voice was cheerful, trying to generate enthusiasm, but the words merely served to increase the mockery from a warrior approaches the far-off planet Earth, ready to demonstrate the value of humanity in the face of an inevitable loss. Will does history recur? Or is there more to these animals than first glances reveal? The audience burst out laughing once more, undermining any chance of meaningful taking into account the analysis of the commentators' human odds in relation to theatrical exaggeration. They highlighted the physical strength's evident drawbacks, combat expertise, and technical discrepancy. Their decision was unanimous. The person had no chance at all. Even wagered on how long the battle would last. Would often last less than a tiny, but in the midst of the noise of there were some spectators who made fun of observed with interest, as opposed to because they had witnessed how people, despite their flaws, they always appeared to. In order to surprise them, there was something about their obstinacy, unwillingness to concede defeat that piqued these onlookers. But these voices were swept away in the overpowering flood of disdain as the last arrangements were caused the people to stand still. Gaze sweeping the arena, and the audience mistook the composed manner for fear, cheering more loudly, but something disturbing about the person's poise, a peaceful assurance that wasn't appropriate for the alien story of powerlessness, a champion looming over its rival. Its stance snorted in amusement. The championship exuded a sense of superiority. A bell rung to announce the beginning of the rush of excitement in the crowd, eager to witness the eventual devastation develop, although first they would see the history of the arena. Humanity did not anticipate, was not present for amusement, rather, it was redemption. The human challenger is here. Positioned themselves in the middle of the arena, and the air was heavy with incredulity, and the alien champion loomed over them in derision. Its adversary's raw power and threatened the laughter of the crowd reverberated throughout space, but the human behavior remained eerie. Calm. The audience wasn't expecting this. They had anticipated seeing terror and desperation, fear among earlier challengers, who were humans nonetheless. Not this silent, uncompromising presence. Every aspect of a person's appearance became the focus of mockery. in contrast to the armored and heavily armed alien-human equipment, appeared nearly basic. The alien commentators pointed out that pointing out these obvious discrepancies, emphasizing what they considered to be humanity stupidly, they didn't prepare. Mocked the slender human body by drawing comparisons negatively affecting the champion's large, strong body. Each word added to the story of a definite defeat. The contest started with a violent outburst. It came from the foreign champion with assurance, nearly reckless as it sprang forward to put an end to the battle swiftly. But the human moved quickly and precisely, while dodging. The audience gasped with eerily effective efficiency. Taken by surprise demonstration of proficiency, while the alien champion's moves were strong and dependable and designed to overwhelm strength as opposed to flexibility. The humans took advantage of this sidestepping strikes with strategic accuracy. The commentators struggled to elucidate what they observed in the tone of dismissal changed to one of the humans' tentative curiosity, was not attacking, but only watching and modifying each dodge and feint. Appeared too intentional, as if the challenger was considering the alien champion its rival. Clearly irritated, it doubled its despite efforts. The hum movements persisted. Smooth, nearly effortless. This wasn't fortunately. It turned out that the person was testing the long-term strategy limits of the champion while preserving each evasion's energy, shown subtly flaws in the alien's structure shortcomings that the person observed without exposing its approach to the audience initially amused. They started to calm down. A feeling of perplexity permeated the arena while observing a human challenger endure longer than any previous extraterrestrial. The champion is used to winning quickly. Becoming more careless, its enormous strikes failed to reach their target, and its confidence started to falter while the humans demonstrated an exceptional degree of attention and consciousness, responding to each move as if it had expected it to earlier. The audience began to whisper. For the first time, among themselves, they recognized potential and strength rather than brutal force, but in combat. They didn't completely recognize that human motions weren't just elusive but calculated at every turn, was designed to compel the extraterrestrial advocate for underprivileged positions. It was a struggle for endurance and intelligence as opposed to brute force. The knowing that it couldn't land an attempt was made to corner the human. But every effort was unsuccessful since the opponent slipped away with amazing agility. This wasn't a crowd fight. Had before witnessed a protest of flexibility and accuracy, some observers started to identify the human approach in contrast to most challengers who depended on their strength. Lacking, the humans leaned on their speed and strengths, flexibility, and a remarkable capacity to read the attitude of its opponent in the crowd. Started to change. The laughter became more subdued, supplanted by alien whispers of fascination. Commentators paused their earlier assurance wing as the human unconventional strategies that persisted in defying. By this point, the alien champion's expectations, there was obvious dissatisfaction, but it wasn't used to protracted altercations, and it's after every missed strike. Stamina started to wane, trained its energy. But the human stayed constant in anticipation of the ideal time to attack the mob. After detecting the momentum change, leaned forward in their seats, their derision turning into unwilling interest in what had begun as the hot, humiliating spectacle had become a real competition between the human challenger. Wasn't just getting by, but this was not about prospering under pressure. Accident, it got more obvious that the presence of the human being in the arena was not a desperate move, but rather a conscious decision. This warrior, who had researched the history of the arena and discovered from the shortcomings of humanity and reached. The alien champion now has a plan. Clearly worn out, became increasingly desperate once calculated attacks turned into reckless ones. Swings, creating gaps that a person could exploit, but the challenger was still there. Patiently declining to hasten the battle each time. Move was intentional, each part of a more comprehensive plan. The previously antagonistic started to applaud, not out of allegiance to the human, but with regard for its ability. There was an obvious change in energy. And for the arena felt unsure for the first time. The commentators' difficulties in maintaining their authority made an effort to minimize they presented the human performance as a make a string of fortunate evasions, but even they were unable to ignore what was in front of their eyes. The human was more than simply surviving. It was taking advantage of one of the arena's finest champions. This was no coincidence. Was evidence of the tenacity of humanity and properties of flexibility that had been, for too long, undervalued as the Drew closed the alien in the opening round. Champion took a brief step back to regain its breath. The human, standing calm and collected, had not yet displayed any indications of exhaustion. The audience burst into a mixture of skepticism and hesitant applause. They anticipated another brief, unbalanced game. But they were witnessing was a very different matter. Humanity had changed and entered the arena as a competitor rather than as prey. The championship's tone had changed, and along with it how people perceived throughout the galaxy the scene was prepared for a conflict that would put the galaxy's entire system to the test. They realized that the battle had taken a severe turn. Assumed the role of the alien champion, irritated by its failure to deliver a powerful strike started depending on its overwhelming strength. The first haughtiness that had described its motions was swapped out. It began with irritation and aggressiveness. A string of assaults intended to corner its adversary using brute force to crush any opposition, but this change in strategy played solely into each person's hands. Wild Strike revealed fresh vulnerabilities in the enormous alien body was once a representation of invincibility started to show its restrictions on its use of brute force had established weaknesses in its defenses, and the human challenger took advantage of them without hesitation. A minor, well-timed blows focused on the weak spots of the invaders. Bees weren't terrible creatures, but they were accurate enough to drain power and morale, requiring the winner to spend greater work for decreasing rewards. Than now completely captivated. The audience watched as the dynamic changed even further, the human as the strategy became apparent. It was more of a cerebral challenge than a physical one. The challenger was winning the game. Every action appeared to foretell the aliens the next phase is for every dodge to be exactly timed. Irritate and wear out the person once the raucous crowd has subsided. Laughter gave way to whispers of awe and incredulity as the extraterrestrial, the champion, became noticeably worn out. Throughout this endurance, stamina stayed steady. Was surprising considering the supposed human physical inadequacy. But it was not only physically tough. The way people moved showed a knowledge of the battlefield that had been proven by other challengers. Took advantage of the terrain, avoiding obstructions to maintain the alien unsteady on all feet. The strike was a component of a bigger scheme. The winner, recognizing that it was losing control of the battle, attempted to recover its footing with a fresh surge of vitality. However, despite their strength, their attacks where the human was becoming more and more desperate. By contrast, kept calm while waiting for the appropriate time to press. The benefit of this forbearance, in contrast to the previous challenger's frantic energy, was disturbing to the viewers. As though the person has already foreseen the result and was only carrying out a well-practiced strategy. By now, the commentators from space couldn't figure out words. They had devoted the initial part of the human was made fun of by the match, but now they spoke in a different tone. Evaluated phrases examining the human's motions that combined curiosity and regard. That they started to recognize the demonstration of tactical brilliance, although they were hesitant to give full credit. The human, out of concern for inconsistencies, their previous rejections of the turning the point, was made without any dramatic blow, but with the buildup of tiny certain acts taken by the extraterrestrial champion, burdened with fatigue and frustration, started to waver once the once dominant presence now appeared vulnerable. It moves more slowly and less managed. The person who detected the change started to intensify its assaults. These were not random attacks, but well-thought-out techniques intended to take advantage of the aliens' crowd exhaustion and overexertion. Initially, their responses were split, began to elude the human applause, exploded, becoming louder with every effective strike. That started as the humiliating spectacle had changed into a conflict about audience regard. Acknowledging the aptitude and tenacity of the challenger, discovered themselves supporting the underdog in this situation. It was more about species superiority. About observing a competition of genuine skill. The extraterrestrial champion is now clearly one final desperate attempt at struggling try to take back control of it, charged with all of its remaining power, intending to overpower the person with a final stroke of the game. But these two had the human sidestepped as expected, with effortless precision countering with a blow that caused the champion to stunned. The audience yelled in approval. Their enthusiasm is intensifying. Commentators are unable to refute the dominance of humans. Started to frame the battle in a different way. They described the tenacity of humanity and its capacity to adapt and conquer. They were astounded by the tactic that had changed the course against the ostensibly unbeatable opponent for the first time. The narrative changed from derision to awe as the extraterrestrial champion withdrew. In an effort to retrieve, the humans did not gloat, they held firm. No show of haughtiness, just a calm assurance that made a big impression on the audience. Now completely awake, the human side burst into applause that filled the arena. The After the contemptuous spectators were defeated, not by force but by intelligence plan and an unwavering will the performance of the human redefining the galactic dynamics arena, the goal was no longer to prove it was about physical superiority, showcasing the strength of creativity and tenacity. The battle was far from over, but the result was becoming obvious. For a long time, humanity was viewed as feeble and inconsequential had at last earned its within the arena. This competition was one that the galaxy would remember how the human challenger got started. To change strategies moving from defense against a limited offense using the alien champion was obviously worn out, and its attacks that are becoming more frequent uncoordinated, the people observed the chance to demonstrate control over every stroke was a purposeful movement. Determined that it was no longer about, invested in the result burst into a mixture of applause and startled quiet at every human computed a maneuver. It was evident that their mentality had changed. They had stopped making fun of or dismissing, learned to appreciate the hum in each performance. The venue is notorious for its harsh and frequently one-sided competitions. We're increasingly seeing a demonstration of tenacity, fortitude, and a level of brilliance few could have predicted. Perhaps humanity has demonstrated that it was more qualified to compete on this stage. The extraterrestrial analysts who had previously brazenly disregarded human opportunities examined and complimented its performance. The battle with fresh reverence, stressing the method's durability and accuracy that had led the individual to at this point. They discussed how the challenger had destroyed its rival. Not by using force alone, but by excellent strategies and flexibility. The human achievement wasn't limited to triumphing in combat, served as a lesson in its meaning. To fully comprehend and become proficient in a battlefield as the extraterrestrial champion, a last-ditch effort to change the tide, it was evident that it had the fortitude or concentration to achieve its moves that were once strong and purposeful, were now erratic and disorganized. In contrast, humans maintained their composure throughout movement that is efficient and well-calculated. There was no hesitation and no effort was wasted. Was the result of many years of planning, diligence, and a resolute faith in one's capacity to conquer any contest. The last blow, when it was delivered, wasn't long or spectacular. Instead, it was straightforward, accurate, and conclusive. The extraterrestrial, the champion, passed out, unable to go on. The audience let out a loud roar. Their yells and applause reverberated throughout. First time in the arena in a human's history in the galactic arena had appeared. This victory wasn't merely a victory, it was a declaration that humanity was incapable of no longer be disregarded or undervalued. The challenger's human presence standing in the arena's middle did avoid taking too much pride in your triumph. Or pride. There was a silence in its attitude of humility. This was not about one's own glory, but about demonstrating a point that illustrates how humanity's raw power was not one of the best qualities. However, in the capacity to think, adjust, and endure, there was more to this battle. It was about more than just survival. Changing the definition of what it was to be a rival in a galaxy with a lengthy viewed as inferior to humans in the aftermath of the altercation sent shockwaves throughout. The news of the humans' victory spread throughout the galaxy, quickly igniting discussions and debates over the entire interstellar communications. For many, this was a time of community taking human perception into consideration. Once regarded as weak and unimportant, had been permanently altered. The triumph in the venue was respected in addition to, but has also contested long-standing views on the definition of strength. Competent and deserving of praise, the actual galactic arena would never be the likewise. This battle had established a new benchmark, demonstrating that power by itself was not sufficient to ensure the HUM's success. Performance had brought attention to the significance of resilience in strategy, and the capacity to adjust to any circumstance had demonstrated that triumph was not guarded for those with the greatest physical dominance, but for those capable of handling the situation with cunning and perseverance. The defeat of the alien champions also carried a deeper meaning. It served as a reminder to the galaxy, which even has the strongest potentially collapse in the presence of an adversary who was unwilling to relinquish the human. The triumph of the challengers was evidence of all species have the capacity to increase beyond their constraints and accomplish brilliance via pure determination, and when mankind returned to Earth, their inventiveness was celebrated and proudly accepted. The triumph wasn't solely a personal one, accomplishment, but a victory for humanity overall. It marked a turning point, a time when the galaxy started to believe that people are neither weak or unimportant, but as equals with the ability to compete, and the interstellar stage was a place where the battle in the galactic arena had been an extremely terrible battle that goes beyond physical skill. It had been a struggle for acknowledgement, deference, and the entitlement to join the greatest of the galaxy. This occasion would be remembered in history as a pivotal moment in the history of humanity. It served as a reminder of the need of strength, various forms, and the real power is found in the capacity to overcome obstacles by bravery, tenacity, and the human challenger lacked the ingenuity, not only prevailed in a battle, but had also won the thoughts and emotions of a whole galaxy that the future was no longer uncertain, and dismissal. It was a possible assurance and the unwavering conviction that the best days of humanity were still to come. Crowds in galactic arenas made fun of human warriors. You,